Hey, all you outliers, you nobodies, you ragtaggy bunch of irascibles. Welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor, a podcast where we do our best to interpret life through a theologic lens, a show where we address things about which today's church is both terrified and silent. Thanks for joining me. As the Pope of podcasting, I take your download seriously, but I especially take your intellect seriously. Today I want to think with you the deep meaning in life. The secular and the sacred approach that in dramatically diverse ways, and I think that any person of self-conscious awareness is interested in finding meaning. Only a degraded hedonist fails to ever ask that ubiquitous question, just what is life all about? What does life have for me? So, yeah, the meaning of life. But first, a prayer, and then I want to give a little cultural reflection. Guys, we all have friends or family who have difficult children. Maybe, maybe they're rebellious. Maybe they're just withdrawn. They live in silent bubbles of existential darkness. Maybe they have diagnosed mental problems. Maybe they have undiagnosed mental problems. Do they wound themselves? They definitely wound the rest of the family, and dealing with them is a drain. It drains mom and dad, drains other family members, drains and siphons away energies for other social engagement. Let me pray with you. Pray with me. Holy Lord of heaven and earth, you created us. You brought us into being, and per one of my usual approaches, Abba, we, the finite creature, approach you, the infinite. You are infinite in your beauty and power and life. O King Jesus, some of us have very heavy crosses to bear. Too many families, Lord, have kids who struggle with depression, years of medication, years of frustration, existential drain, heartache. Today, Holy Spirit, deep cries out to deep. Come be with us. Touch these children. Strengthen these parents. Do a thing, God. Intervene. Bring about little incremental changes that add up over time to dramatic change. Let your light and truth and joy wash through souls like a flowing river. We ask this confessing that you are the God who preloaded the universe with information and design. So, Lord, design our kids. Abba, redesign our families. We heartfully pray this in the name of the one who is perfect in all of his relationships, Jesus. Ganao, ganao. Amen, amen. Well, you guys, we have them. New 40-ounce UU tumblers. On my webpage, there's a link where you can purchase this kind of swag, t-shirts, coffee mugs, coasters, computer mouse pads. There's one behind me. There's one behind me there on my bookcase that you can see. We have these enormous tumblers you can listen to and watch the UU with some big, huge paraphernalia on hand. You won't go thirsty with this thing in your mug. Oh, and please know that the videos I'm now recording for each week's show are available on Rumble or YouTube. Well, on YouTube, when the persnickety YouTubers don't pull down one of my shows for poking the woke in the eye. Are you like me? You've hit life's lottery jackpot. What do I mean? I was born here in the United States. Well, born here in Spudlandia, in fact. No country on earth across history has had it so good, enjoys so much bounty, so much liberty. And all that even though 81 million's doing his best to incrementally strip away our civil liberties. Sheesh. I should give Slotty Joe a new nickname. How about Joey 5? For the $5 million bribe that an FBI agent is now saying Joe took back when he was vice president. Joey 5. Man, oh man. Oh, that's a good one, Ribby? But still, despite 81 million's efforts, no country enjoys so much collective goodwill, enjoys so much opportunity, possibility, prosperity, flourish, as we do here in the good old US of A. Now, I've had the privilege of traveling all over Europe. I even got to go to Costa Rica once. They were all lovely countries with lovely people. And every time I travel, I'm reminded of how good I have it here living in America. But with all that in mind, why? Why is it now that after 246 years, not a single country in the world has adopted the U.S. Constitution as the basis for its own government? Isn't that something? If the way our nation is formulated has foundationally to do with the structure of our government, then why has no other country on earth taken our Constitution as a template and then used that to establish government in their own nation? Why? Here's the answer. Crickets. Crickets? No, it's not crickets. The answer's clear. None, not one of those other nations wants to have a government that is so limited by their law. None of them wants to answer to the people. And by God, none of them wants to answer to God. Isn't that something? Not really. I mean, that is the history of the human race. If only we could go back to studying human nature in the classroom. Oh, I hear you, lady. But the Pomos tell us there is no such thing as human nature. Look, you guys, I didn't come up with this. In the car, I was listening to talk radio one day, several months ago, and on Sean Hannity's show, a woman, her name may have been Rose Soma Tennant, I didn't write it down, but she was filling in and she made this piercing observation. No other country on earth has adopted the U.S. Constitution. Foreign leaders, to a man, do not want to have such checks weighing down upon their exercise of power. No, they want to be able to plunder their nation's own resources. Greedily, they positively want to be able to ravage their people's bank accounts. Only here in America are politicians and institutions so pressed down, so limited. And all that's just one reason the left so hates our Constitution. But then that only begs the question. How are the progressives then pulling it off? How are they when our Constitution, by genius design, was established so as to make it arduous for politicians to screw we the people? How are they doing it? How are they doing us? Well, they're doing it in two primary ways. First, with the help of big tech. Politicians are skirting the law and skirting the First Amendment, skirting freedom of speech by censoring and using that power to censor us with big tech. They're working furtively, sneakily together to shut down and critique all the opposition and fundraising and info sharing that they don't like. It should be illegal. But because it's still relatively new, and because SCOTUS has too many feckless cowards sitting there, John Roberts, they're getting away with it. Big tech is today too often the handmaid of the devil. Second, how are they doing it? The wokerati are getting around the checks and balances in the U.S. Constitution with the aid of federal bureaucrats. These bureaucrats in the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, and a plethora of other intrusive institutions, they're deeply entrenched in the horrors now being inflicted upon the citizenry. They can't be fired. My father-in-law, Dennis, a lifelong political scientist, told me on a phone call a few months ago that only something like 40 federal employees were fired in all of 2022. 40 fired out of 4 million. Sheesh. There are local companies who go through more than 40 employees in a year. I'll bet that there were way more than 40 Jackson Mini Mart gas station employees fired here in Spudlandia alone last year. Man, just musing along these lines, we now understand why the DC machinery so hates Donald Trump, right? He ran on a platform of draining the swamp in DC. He talked across 4 years of his presidency about how the swamp positively gobshites 300 million of we the people. Trump spoke openly about the grotesque nature of federal bureaucracies. No wonder they hate his guts. No wonder they want to throw him in prison for life. He's a threat to their cozy jobs, a threat to their pensions, a threat to their deep-seated power base. So, those bureaucrats can barely be fired. And then they have, well, some of them, they have power to inflict enormous woe and suffering on the rest of us. And per usual across human history, it only takes a few bad seeds to make life miserable for thousands, no millions of we other unsuspecting folks. It's just incredible to watch. Evil men plotting evil in their hearts and then carrying that out in public. It's wild stuff. Ugh. Well, let me transition from observing the public exercise of human nature and turn things to more internal meaning. Any self-conscious human asks the question, what is life all about? And more disturbing still is the question, what is my life all about? Why am I here? Even as a little kid, I remember standing at the edge of the Pacific Ocean, standing there on an ice-cold, rugged Oregon beach and asking, what's this all about? Who am I? And it doesn't take much to provoke such questioning. Sometimes the sublime quality of nature is usually all it takes. Class, I want you to say sublime. Class, say sublime, please. Sublime, teacher. Very good, class. Thanks, I appreciate that. We run into the sublime when we see the haunting moon as it pokes through those white clouds at night. Or we run into the sublime when we encounter an alive but silent and mysterious presence of some massive oak tree, right? Even in the Bible, trees are spots for encounter with the divine, Genesis 18:1. We can encounter the sublime when we look at a snow-capped mountain, or even flowers can provoke this kind of reflection. Let me share something I wrote in my chapter on Immanuel Kant in my book For Him Who Has Eyes to See, Beauty in the History of Theology, available at all fine booksellers. Here's a quote. In the cool early morning, you may look at a hydrangea plant and be delighted by its beauty. The broad, velvety, and soft but lush petals send out vibrations of light, blue and violet. The petals are arranged in grapefruit-sized snow cone-shaped clusters, and the morning dew rests gently atop thousands of the petals in order to magnify and bend the light as it moves across the plant's surface. Now, you may look at that hydrangea and think, what a visual feast! This hydrangea exists to make me and all other onlookers happy. End quote. You may think that that flower exists to bring meaning to your own life. Or, if you go a little deeper, you may, in the magical appearance of beauty, you may wonder whether that hydrangea is signaling to you that the cosmos itself rings of meaning. My point? Most everyone looks to find meaning in life. So what then about the secular and the sacred against one another on this point? Well, you guys know this. The secular pretends that there is no absolute meaning. It pummels down into our bone marrow that we have to create our own meaning. Since, as the presupposition insists, since we live in a closed universe, there is no meaning apparent anywhere in life. No, again, as the atheist secular scientist Carl Sagan put it, the universe is all that ever was, or is, or ever will be. And it followed for Sagan that there's no meaning in the universe. The only meaning that exists is that which we make for ourselves. We can make that meaning through our jobs, right? So is it any wonder then that millions today trade deep meaning for a workaholic lifestyle? And secularism is today screaming at young women to trade a workaholic lifestyle for getting married and having children? I'm not. Are we at all surprised that millions of women are now struggling with depression, with burnout, struggling with addictions to pharmaceutical drugs and prescriptions? Oh, you guys, they've been lied to. They've been told meaning is found somewhere outside of having a family. They've bought into the lying spirit of feminism. Or Lord Secularism tells us that we can fabricate meaning through our own self-opinions, right? If I just think enough good thoughts about myself, I can become the best version of myself. It's so syrupy, banal, vapid. And excuse me, but that best version crap will pass like so many other fads. Of course, yes, self-talk is important. No, you will never create deep meaning by talking to yourself about yourself. What else? Well, Lord Secularism beats down into our bone marrow that having enough toys is the path to meaning. Sheesh, we see it in print, advertising, radio, TV, electronic media. Every one of those assault our sensibilities with the simulacra that if we just have more toys, we'll finally find deep meaning. But is that ever even true? I mean, goodness, how many tragic bios about big league athletes, Aaron Hernandez, or rock stars, Kurt Cobain, do we have to read to learn that having more toys is not, in fact, finally the core of deep meaning in life? Oh, you guys, we can make a long list. And I don't want to sound like an icy cold scold. So I won't make that list long, but secularism tells us, it lies to us, that because the universe is itself empty, there's no true meaning in life. And all of our many attempts to fabricate meaning wind up in the boneyard of emptiness. That's the story of modernism. That's the emphatic story of postmodernism. That's the witness of recent history. An empty universe is a laser cut path to depression. Why depression? Because there's no there in meaninglessness. There's no there in the pretend game of making our own meaning. Well, then, what about the sacred approach? Honestly, you guys, it's not that human beings have practiced religions in order to find meaning. That's just not the historical witness. That's not even what archaeologists tell us about human beings. No, to be human is to be religious. It's that deep. And I won't develop today the utter silliness of Christians who insist that Christianity is not a religion but a relationship. You're playing the wrong game. You're playing into the very wiles and schemes of secularism. You're playing it exactly the opposite of what we know to be true about human nature. But here's my point. We don't need meaning. We are meaning. We don't need religion. We are religion. Every time archaeologists find the remnants of human civilization, we see that they were burying one another. They cared about how the dead were treated. Why? They knew down inside the script of their cellular structure, they knew that we creatures are more. We're more than empty shells. We deserve more than being left to rot out on the grass. So they buried one another, honored one another. Reverence. Something of reverence is involved in burial. It's partly why I'm thinking I won't be cremated after I die. My body matters to God. So does yours. And I may resist cremation as a way to tell secularism to go to hell. You guys, we don't need meaning. Created in God's image, we are meaning. We don't need religion. Created in God's image, We are religious. Everywhere human civilization has been unearthed, we were worshiping some god, worshiping some transcendent power, the sun, the ocean, volcanoes. To be human is to worship. Aristotle said that human beings are what they are when, as defined by love. We are what we love. We're essentially lovers. In Latin, he said, per essentiam amoris. Well, Mr. Stottle, we could also accurately 100% say that human beings are defined by that we worship. Essentialiter cultores. We're essentially worshipers. And remember from my from my episode number 309, Cult and Culture, the word culture comes from cult, what is worshipped. Cultures are built on what is worshipped. And human beings cannot not worship something. Meaning is found in what we worship. Meaning is found that we worship. So it's crazy that secularism tells us we should isolate what we worship and remove it from the public square. It's 1,000,000% moving against the history of human nature. Secularism is anti-humanism. Secularism defies what it means at the oldest levels, what it means to be human. Guys, we're being, how you say, so played. Ed, I thought this was a theology show, a Christian show. You sound like an anthropologist. You sound more like a historian than a theologian. What about Jesus and the Bible? Well, thanks for that challenge, Goofy. You're right. I'm trying to cast a wide net. I'm trying today to help us to understand why the entirety of the human race, right up until 200 years ago or right up until 3 years ago, was universally religious. Why we've always had at the core of our culture some God, some religious worship of that God. I'm attempting to explain how weird and unusual is the era of secularism now that we find ourselves having to navigate. It all seems normal, but it isn't. And that abnormality is producing disorder of all kind, right? Given the emptiness of secularism, given that secularism says the universe is not authentically happy, it's some weird cosmic hiccup. Given that secularism says the universe is governed finally by a no thing, are we one tiny bit surprised that we live in the greatest era of misery, addiction, depression, and despair in all of human history? How weird is that? Despite enjoying electricity, running water, in-home toilets, laundry machines, automobiles, access to plentiful food, we instead see widespread anger, misery, bitterness, coldness of soul. But how could it be elsewise? The universe is simultaneously closed and empty, and so there is no meaning, there is no depth. It's all a cosmic shell game. Evolution is playing a mind game with us all to have us believe morality is real. But it only appears that morality is real, just like it only appears that beauty is real. You create your own meaning. Become the best version of yourself. That's the best that any of us can do. Seriously? That's ultimate reality? I'd be depressed too. And here's the deal, guys, and next week I'm going to be way more specific with you on this. Holy God, the truth of Christianity is real. It's more real than even any of you have been led to believe. It's what Christianity has going on. Christianity is what it is about what is. Christianity is not merely what is what ought to be. Christianity is about what is. But here's the philosophical dealio. Here's the philosophical anthropological dealio. Across the millennia, the human race has been far more motivated by things invisible and spiritual than they have been by tangible, visible things. We've been driven in history to build entire cultures to the glory of God, or even little g gods, which are idols, which are archons, also known as big demons. We've been driven to protect and bless and preserve our clans. We've been driven to find meaning in the universe, always. We've been motivated to create beauty and fashion beauty because we empirically knew in our souls, in mystical ways even, that the universe is sated with meaning, pervaded with meaning. No, we've always been driven. We've always found meaning in transcendent realities, bigger than ourselves elements at work in the universe. Always. Secularism is gaslighting us to believe that we can create deep meaning by ourselves. Never in human history did human beings turn to nothing. Secularism is gaslighting us to believe that religion is a matter of mere opinion. Never before in human history did a significant chunk of humanity espouse belief in some ultimate nothing. We live in such bizarre, unprecedented times. And OMG, are we ever seeing what a life characterized by nihilism is producing, right? Evil, vomiting out of darkness. Rampant destruction gushing out of emptiness. All of that now on a grand public parade, insisting that it be celebrated. If you don't celebrate me murdering life, I'm going to kill you. No, human beings have always been driven by deep meaning. Meaning that is rooted within the inherent nature of the universe. Certainly, yes, different cultures turn that inherent nature into idolatry, yes. But still, in contrast to our pomo, empty universe, deep meaning evacuated era, those who lived before us got it. They were far more attuned to reality and truth than we see society today. And now, Goofy, I'll finally be the theologian. Gosh, thanks for acknowledging me, Ed. I'm honored you're taking my question so seriously. Thank you. Yuck. Well, we don't talk this way, you guys. We don't talk this way about our Christian faith. But it could not be more central. We don't only know our Christian faith, we know all of reality through it. Religion is not some private practice. Christianity is a way of knowing reality. We've been so sculpted by the worldview of secularism that we don't put it so carefully. We know reality through Christ, through the worldview He gave us, Christianity. C.S. Lewis once put it poignantly, I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. Close quote. My friends, true Christianity, vivid Christianity, deep meaning Christianity is not merely something we look at. No, it was given to us by Christ so that we could more clearly see everything else. And that's because Christianity is true. True truth. Essential truth. Framing truth. The truth, and the only truth really, that offers us deep and eternal meaning. I praise you, Lord Christ, not only for offering yourself, but that by and in and through yourself, you help us find the deep meaning of life that is everywhere around us. Thanks for thinking carefully with me today, you guys. I appreciate your download. I appreciate you joining me. Until next week, please, everyone go and turn your beautiful God-given brains on.